Hi, everyone, and welcome. I'm Vidya Krishnan, Head of Capability Consulting and Operational Excellence for Ericsson North America. I am excited to be your moderator today for today's Google Hangout on a topic that's very dear to us about innovation culture and grassroots engagement, brought to you by the IEEE Women in Engineering. This topic means a great deal to me and all of our panelists, and we really thank you for joining us. Imagine for a moment walking into your first day of your dream job, the workplace of your dreams. What does it feel like to be walking into that ideal workspace for you? What's going through your head? What do you hear? What do you see? How do you feel? It's a powerful thing that, despite the diversity of today's workforce, just about every single person envisions a highly innovative culture and all of the engagement that comes with it when they think about their ideal workplace circumstances. So what does that tell us? It tells us that an innovation culture, where creating value is part of the everyday fabric, everyday habits, the way things get done, it's no longer just a nice to have. It's a basic and almost universal survival need. It's an unmatched force of retention and attraction in an otherwise unforgiving and sometimes very volatile industry landscape. So when it comes to innovation culture, we all want it. We can't afford not to have it, and this panel is about how we get it, using the power of grassroots engagement to make it happen. Over this hour, you will hear perspectives, anecdotes, examples, best practices from our distinguished panel of Ericsson leaders. So here we go. We'll have each panelist introduce themselves, tell everyone their name, their role, and one word that comes to mind when they think about what an incredible innovation culture means to them. So we'll start with Ilaria.
Hello, my name is Ilaria Brunelli. I'm an engineering manager at Ericsson R&D organization, and I'm also head of the Experience Center of Silicon Valley. As the name says, the Experience Center is a place where our customer can experience how our products are shaping the network society of the future. The word that comes to my mind when I think about innovation culture is empowerment. Everybody across the organization should feel empowered to take their ideas further and to innovate. Kat.
Thank you, Ilaria. My name is Catherine Nguyen. I'm currently working at the AT&T Foundry, which is an innovation and research center for one of Ericsson's biggest customers, AT&T. And when I think of one word for which creates an incredible innovation culture, it really has to be empathy. We have to understand who it is that we're innovating for and what it is that motivates them and what their challenges are. Next up is Jenny.
Thanks, Kat. Hi, everyone. My name is Jenny Rosas, and I'm a Senior Talent Management Consultant at Ericsson. My word that I think of when I think of innovation is probably courage. It takes a lot of courage for someone to really bring forth a new idea or to make a process improvement. Latoya?
Thank you, Jenny. I'm Latoya Haynes, and I'm a part of the talent management team in Plano, Texas for Ericsson. I'm a director of talent management. And the word that comes to my mind when I think about an innovation culture is agility. You have to be able to be flexible and adapt and roll with the changes of the business and your customers as well.
Excellent. So empower, empathy, courage, and agility. These are four themes we'll keep hearing again and again. So let's get to know our team and this topic even better over the next 20 minutes. We'll hear from our panelists and we'll get their take on some fundamental issues about innovation culture for about 20 minutes. And then with our last 10 minutes, we'll take live questions from you, our audience, and then wrap up with our key conclusions. If you have a question or any comments, because we know if you're here, you're not indifferent about this topic, you're as passionate as we are. So if you have a question or any comments, please join the conversation by tweeting to us using the hashtag WIELEAD, we lead, Women in Engineering lead. Or you can use the chat window on your Google Plus Hangout. So if you're out there listening, we know you care and we want to hear from you. Ilaria, we'll start with this fundamental question to you. The term innovation is broadly used and it means different things to different people and to different companies. How does Ericsson view this topic And what does an innovation culture mean to you personally?
Thank you. Well, in Ericsson, we innovate in several ways. We, of course, have an Ericsson research organization that looks at a 2 to 5 years innovation. And then each development unit has a technology organization that looks at 1 to 2 years technology innovations. Then for everybody in the organizations, in several organizations, we have also different initiatives to empower them to innovate as well. These initiatives could be, for example, innovation boxes, it could be hackathons or innovation funnels of various kinds. My personal experience start with innovation culture started a few years ago when I moved from Italy here into San Jose, and I got the opportunity to be part of the core team of one of our innovation funnels. And together with the other engineers, we got some trainings on design thinking methodologies. It was a great experience, and since then I always have the stages of the innovation thinking in the back of my mind when I'm approaching new problems. As I mentioned, I'm the head of the Experience Center of Silicon Valley, and here we have a constant flow of customers, students, and visitors of any kind from everywhere in the world. So with innovation in mind, what we decided to do is to leverage this flow of people coming through our Experience Center to expose the prototypes that our great engineers in the organizations here and abroad are coming up with. So basically, if you think about the design thinking methodology and you divide it in 3 stages, inspiration, ideation, and then action, we have decided to bring this action inside the Experience Center. So that's about fast prototyping, gathering feedback on your prototype early on, and make sure that you don't waste too much time into a project that maybe is not a great idea. And you can then make a successful product thanks to this early on feedback. So this was very helpful, and at the same time, anyway, it makes you realize that innovation is not so easy to get it right at the first time. And I have today 2 examples for you that I have decided that would represent well what we are talking about today. Prototype number 1 was an idea made by 2 great talented engineers in this organization here. And the technical idea was great. They did a very good implementation. And then when it was the time of deciding how to show it to the customer, they have this scenario in mind that they thought it could work. We started showing it to the customer in the Experience Center, and we realized that the customers was not really seeing the picture. They were not really understanding or agreeing on the fact that that would have been good for them. So then we went a little bit deeper in the discussion with them, explaining the technology, and they liked the technology, and then they told us, like, no, we would actually use it rather for these other scenarios that we have in mind, or to solve this problem that we have in mind. So the engineers then quickly could change this prototype into something that was more appealing, and this prototype now became a very great, successful product that every customer is interested in. The prototype number 2, the story number 2, is another similar idea coming from engineers here, but they were actually part of one of these our innovation initiatives. So they were kind of forced to go through all these different stages of the design thinking methodology. So they did an inspiration by gathering feedback and interviewing different companies around the Bay Area to understand what are their needs and ways of working. They did a brainstorming, gathering experienced engineers from different areas to make sure that they were already tackling the right problem in the right way, and then they finally created the prototype. Well, when we started showing it to customer, it was clear since the beginning that it was already the right use case, because customer could understand since the very beginning and appreciate. It was still very useful, though, to show it to customers early on before it became a product, because by the time that we made it a product, we anyway added a lot of flavor to it. So to summarize, these were 2 great examples that, in my opinion, show you how you can help your company to increase the innovative culture that is in your company, but also how basically having this human-centered design thinking process in mind helps you to get things right since the beginning and speed up the process of innovation.
Thank you, Ilaria. I think that's a critical point. I mean, think about innovation, we naturally think about products and solutions, and we almost have to remind ourselves that it is a human-centered design process. So let's stay on this thread of a human-centered design process being kind of a core of an innovation culture. Catherine, how does a business-to-business company get centered to make human-centered design innovation happen? Most companies are, consumed and obsessed with building solutions and products and technology. How does a business-to-business B2B company focus on human-centered design innovation?
Yeah, thanks, Vidya. That's a really great question, and this is a challenge that companies like Ericsson face because our customer is not an end user, but instead our customer is another business. It's such as Verizon or AT&T. It's important to keep in mind that at the end of the day, there's a human user behind each of our innovations. And so at Ericsson, one thing we strive to do is to think about our customer's customer. And if Ericsson's customers are network operators, then who are AT&T and Verizon's customers, for instance? And then we can drive our products and solutions to address those end users' needs. Another thing that we can think about is the humans within our customer organization and their needs and their motivations. Perhaps there's an operations manager who needs to cut costs, or a product manager who needs to offer more value to their customers. And as a B2B company, we can push to innovate with their motivations in mind. And a third thing that we can think about is the humans within our own organizations. Many of our innovations at Ericsson are centered on internal solutions that help to make our employees more successful. And so at the end of the day, there really is always a human user behind every innovation. We just have to find who that person is and try to understand them more deeply.
So excellent. What I'm hearing is that it's really about making a deliberate, conscientious choice to keep human design aspects and back to your keyword of empathy, keeping that at the center of everything we do. It's a deliberate choice. And so really, an innovation culture is a deliberate choice. It's no accident. It's a design intent. It's very purposeful, and it's continually reinforced by positive consequences in the environment where it happens. So let's think about the environmental condition that results from that kind of deliberate design intent. Jenny, can we get your view on the environmental conditions that make innovation flourish?
Sure, absolutely. Really good question. Innovation is really important to the culture, but in my opinion, I think an innovation environment really begins with the individual. You have to be willing to share those ideas before it becomes a cultural norm. So in a sense, a culture of innovation first requires the discipline of innovation as a habit, and its consequences thereby create a better culture. It's really like a virtuous cycle. Environmental issues, that's a really good point as well. They really need to be able to support that individual, such as a trusting manager or using a disciplined experimentation, so really that smart risk-taking, and a way to connect back with other passionate volunteers. So over the last 4 years, I've been lucky enough to work for 3 different managers that really allowed me to come up with creative initiatives like Exploration Days, which is across North America a 4-hour job shadow program where anyone can sign up to be a host, anyone can sign up to be a participant, and it allows them to do so in truly a safe environment and learn about other roles across the company. Now, I've also been lucky enough to have project teams and work with a bunch of really passionate people that wanted to make these projects or these pilots as successful as I did.
That's excellent. I can say as a personal beneficiary of these Exploration Days, it's becoming a signature program at Ericsson, and it really absolutely embodies that intimate, individual, collaborative dynamic. So what I'm hearing is it really comes down to this individual, human-centered, deliberate, safe environment where collaboration can foster. But our companies are always seeking to grow. So how do you get this individual dynamic to scale and to scale big? That seems like the real trick. How can it happen in a nimble, agile kind of way within a large company such as an information and technology company like Ericsson? Latoya, can you chime in on that?
Absolutely, Vidya. I think we've done a lot of great things around innovation here at Ericsson, and one of the big things is just having a philosophy that you can innovate anywhere and everywhere across the company. From a talent management perspective, where you see that is a couple of different ways. The first is around resources. We always have lots of ideas that we want to implement, but sometimes resources can be tricky. Identifying people, trying to recruit the best talent externally. And what we've done here at Ericsson is we've created a Help Wanted site that's used internally, where managers may need some additional resourcing to help execute on one of these great ideas. So managers can go in and share details on projects that they need some additional resources for, and any employee who has some additional time, whether that's just 5% of their time or capacity or maybe even an hour a week, they can reply to those Help Wanted ads and help us continue to innovate even outside of their day-to-day work and responsibilities. Another thing that you see from a talent management perspective is a very high focus on employee engagement. We want people to be very excited about their work and helping to continuously move the needle forward. So a part of that from an Ericsson standpoint is really making sure that we have new amenities and benefits to offer employees. So we've expanded on our insurance and total benefits. We're now including pet care and other things that make sure that people can focus on their day-to-day because they know everything else is taken care of. The third example that I'll give you is around career development. Ericsson is taking what I'm considering an extremely futuristic approach to career development. We're moving away from career paths and incorporating this philosophy of a career lattice, and basically allowing employees to take lateral moves and stretch assignments that aren't necessarily those traditional promotional paths that would lead to a CEO position or a senior vice president position. So there's a lot more dialogue and a lot more personal impact and touch with regard to creating the type of career that you want at Ericsson. So there's flexibility to incorporate stretch assignments or even assignments in other functional areas as you're pursuing those promotions as well. So the career lattice and that approach here at Ericsson has been very powerful from an innovation standpoint. You no longer have to wait for someone to move out of an assignment to take that assignment. You can now incorporate lots of lateral moves and stretch assignments to still build your toolbox and increase your overall ability to fill future roles and promotions as they come. And the final area that's always important to innovation is diversity. Here at Ericsson, just like all other companies, we have a lot of initiatives around diversity, diversity of thought, as well as backgrounds, etc. A large focus in our company is the use of unconscious bias training to make sure that everyone can bring their complete self to work and also know how to adjust to people from different backgrounds, etc. We also have mentoring programs and lots of opportunities for employees to collaborate, whether it's within your role, there's idea boxes, and several other ways for you to help us to continue to move the needle forward.
Excellent. So I hear in all this really a theme of catalyzing self-awareness and purpose in each employee, that when you create conditions of engagement and you take care of things to let employees focus on being mindful and appreciative of diversity and moving past unconscious bias, then they're empowered and enabled to scale up innovation in a very, very big way. So let's get specific about where innovation is happening. Let's talk about how we do it in extrinsic products and consumer technologies. And we've talked a lot so far about intrinsic innovation. You've heard us and our panelists talk about environmental conditions, the importance of engagement, diversity, fostering a mentality that your career isn't something that you just vertically ascend like a narrow ladder, but really a holistic journey that you undertake. The key of empowerment and courage and empathy and agility when scaling all that. We've talked a lot so far in this webcast about intrinsic innovation. Now let's take a look at extrinsic innovation. So Kat, how can we encourage this kind of extrinsic innovation where we are trying to innovate customer, consumer products and services beyond just our internal processes and tools?
Sure. Yeah, it's really easy, I think, for engineers to focus on just improving the processes and tools that they use all day, every day to get their work done. In one of the Ericsson organizations that I worked in, when we asked for innovation ideas, the majority of the ideas that came back were focused on our internal processes and tools. And one thing that you can do to encourage outward thinking is to come up with interesting challenge questions to spread throughout the organization, such as, for instance, how might we use our technology to enable new products and services? How might we use the next generation internet to enable new products and services? And by spreading these kinds of questions, it gets our teams to focus more on the external products that we're offering to our customers rather than just the tools that they use themselves. And I think that that could be a really effective way to really expand the diversity of ideas with regards to innovation that come in.
Excellent. I think one powerful theme that we've been hearing is it's not about living in certain conditions, it's about making those conditions happen. It's not about being a fortunate beneficiary of a great environment. It's about creating a good environment. It's about purposeful choice and deliberate action to put humans first, to think with diversity, to think holistically. So it's really about empowerment in the sense of grassroots empowerment. So to make all of this happen, what role does grassroots engagement and grassroots innovation play in catalyzing this larger innovation culture? Jenny, can you talk about that?
Sure, absolutely, Vidya. So a grassroots initiative, it has to start somewhere. I normally start small, like a pilot, so that I have proof and results to help me really drive that project forward. We were able to design a pilot that could be reliably measured, and we looked at the usefulness of it. And then we were able to find a way to actually scale it all the way across North America. Then people caught on, and it helped us catalyze more connection, awareness, innovation throughout the entire region. When you call things a pilot or an experiment, you get a little bit more leeway. No one really expects perfection whenever you're just running on a pilot.
That's an excellent point. It's a quick, I think, very implementable thing that someone can do just to make a disciplined experiment and to start something. Let's talk a bit more about anecdotes and examples from everyone's experience of how exactly this happens. And maybe conversely, some of the subtle, inadvertent, unconscious, silent things that sometimes make innovation culture not happen. So, Ilaria, can you share an anecdote or an example from your experience of this?
Sure. As I mentioned before, the first word that comes to mind to me when I think about innovation culture was empowerment. So I chose to give some examples of how you can empower yourself and your organization to be more innovative and what can stop it. So for sure, providing a source of inspiration is one important thing to empower your team to be innovative. And as I mentioned, in my team, we are lucky because we get to talk to customers every day. We are engineers, so we have also the skills then to use what we hear and then implement ideas. Once you are inspired, though, you need to have time to explore your ideas. Latoya has talked about this and different ways that are done in the organization. For me, personally, has always been the trickiest thing to find the time, so I'm not surprised that as an organization we have tried to create programs for that where you can get help. But one recommendation that I have is, for example, maybe you can find something across the tasks that you have to down prioritize for a while, at least maybe a week or so, so that you can focus on your innovation and see if it's going somewhere. Then, of course, if it's going somewhere and you need much more time, then you will need to seek help. But that could be a first step. Or, of course, if you're really passionate about your idea, taking maybe some extra hours or weekends and so on to do it is also a suggestion, but sometimes it's difficult. And another thing that is very important, like we talk about diversity, we talk about the opportunity to explore different areas laterally. That's because it's important that you are surrounded by experts in different areas as well. So collaborating, sharing your ideas, surrounding yourself with people that have different background would help you, first of all, to brainstorm your idea and see if it's really something valid, if something that nobody else thought about, and get a different perspective on it. And then, of course, if the idea at the end is good, you have already around you a group of people that can help you to implement it, right? Because we sometimes cannot do everything alone, especially if our idea is outside our boundaries of confidence. So I could go on actually with things that could empower for a long time, but let me then think like, okay, what from my experience and my observation could then instead stop an innovation culture? So, for example, if you have a funnel, an innovation funnel or an ideation process, and you have a tool in it, I think it's very important that this tool is smooth and working perfectly and very well thought. Because picture this, you have a great idea. As we say, you most likely don't have time for it, but you want to submit it to this funnel, you want to get it somewhere. You go to the tool and the tool starts crashing, or it requires you to fill in a lot of different fields with information that maybe you don't have yet because it was just an idea and so on. So this might frustrate you, and then you might decide then not to propose the idea, like, it's not important enough, and this would stop a little bit the innovation potential that is in your company. Another important thing that I notice is that if you want at least these ideas to come from everywhere in your company, not everywhere anyway can then become a product manager and really take the innovation down till becoming a product. So it's important that these people that have these type of powers in the company are easily reachable, and that they could become the sponsor for these ideas from whoever the idea is coming from. So everybody has the feeling that, okay, I know who to go to, who to present this idea to, and I feel that I can approach them and that they would listen to me. So creating this kind of network is also important, and not doing it can stop your innovation.
I think there's the theme again about the environment mattering so much, that champions should be visible and accessible, tools should be enabling and not hindering. And I think a very key point that I heard is innovation can't happen in a vacuum of indifference. You have to care for it to happen. So tapping into people's passions to spur their innovations is a proven methodology for making it happen. So let's do a bit more storytelling here. I want our panelists to be able to share a bit more on some powerful and concrete examples, things our audience can easily try. You've heard some of our ideas of exploration days and help wanted, but let's talk about a bit more storytelling so our audience can come up with things that they might want to actually experiment with and adapt themselves based on best practices that some of our panelists might have been part of in their careers so far. So Latoya, I'll ask you to start.
Thank you, Vidya. The first thing that I would share around storytelling and innovation is the advice that I often give employees here and others that I mentor is bring the outside in. You never know where your next great innovation will come from, and you can be inspired by absolutely anything. So I have two examples of this. One for me is just reading publications and industry news from a variety of sources and a variety of industries. And I was reading an article around manufacturing and production, assembly production, and they were talking about just-in-time supplies and getting things to the assembly line just in time for use, and how that allowed them to save a lot of money, reduce inventory costs, and really help with the ROI with regard to their complete process. And I was thinking about this, and I'm like, okay, well, how can we use that in talent management at Ericsson, this process of just-in-time supplies to an assembly line? And I think where you see that is in our example of the career lattice. What we're doing now is moving from creating these career paths where people continue to progress upward, and also looking at ways to create a lattice where you can spread out and expand your tool set by being able to offer a variety of skills before you're ready for that next promotion. And where you see that specifically from a talent management perspective is in how we develop our leaders. So we have a just-in-time development philosophy that we follow, and making sure that you have the skills before you're expected to apply them in your career. So we train people just in time so that they're able to improve their delivery when it's time for promotion or when it's time for the lateral move. They already have the skills and ability. They just need to show those skills in the new job. The other example that I'll share is this idea that comes from the fast food industry, and how you have combo meals and different things on the menu, but you can always add tomatoes, take away cheese, etc. This concept of having it your way. And I think you also see that process in our career lattice. You can have a career at Ericsson your way. So you can create this combination that may not be a traditional career path to CEO or vice president that can include lateral assignments in HR, finance and accounting, operations, etc., to get to a head of a CU position or ultimately to a CEO destination role. So again, we've moved away from this traditional career pathing and this belief that you have to wait for someone to die or someone to get promoted to take an assignment, to expanding your tool set and looking at opportunities to stretch and grow yourself with lateral moves, with moves across functions, before just pursuing that upward movement every time. So that thought of the career lattice is truly about having a career your way. So if you want a stretch assignment in strategy or communications before moving into a key customer account role, you can do that here at Ericsson. So again, I'd use those two examples and encourage people to always look to apply ideas from other industries, bring the outside in, and manipulate and tweak it to meet your needs.
Excellent. Okay, Catherine, can you share?
Sure. So I was part of a team within Ericsson called the Innova Jumpstart team, and we were brought together and tasked with applying human-centered design thinking towards coming up with new business opportunities for Ericsson. And one of the really greatest strengths about this team was the diversity within the team. To give you an idea, of the 8 team members on the team, we came from 7 different countries, and that really gave us different market perspectives, as well as 4 of our engineers came from different engineering organizations across Ericsson and across the globe as well. We had a team member who was a network security expert, a team member who was well experienced in the patent process, team member who served as our business designer to come up with the business cases behind our innovation ideas. We also had a user experience designer on the team. And so diversity means diversity of culture, diversity of gender, but also diversity of thought and competence. And that's something that's often lost, because so often, even within a group of engineers who all work on the same project, while they may look diverse superficially, if they all work on the same thing and have sort of the same competencies, you don't get a lot of new perspectives. And so that was really a strength that we had. And the other sort of great practice that we had on that team is that we really strived to test our ideas early and test them often. And this is really similar to what Jenny was mentioning about pilots and pilot programs, is that it really gives you the ability to validate your idea without spending too much resources on it. But you can really even test your ideas sooner than that by getting feedback on them, by talking to industry experts, to people within the company, and really not be afraid to use the resources available to you. We found that in reaching out to people we had never talked to, both within our company and outside of our company, people were more than willing to respond to questions we had when we were just there to listen to their opinions and to learn about their challenges without really trying to sell them anything.
Excellent. Jenny, can you share some best practices you've been part of in your career so far?
Sure. 2 things really come to mind. The first is active listening and building upon those active listening skills. So as Kat was mentioning, whenever you get together in these big cross-organizational or cross-functional type teams, if you start shooting down each other's ideas, it really limits innovation and people stop sharing. So use what I call the yes and approach. Constantly build upon each other's idea. It's not an option to say no, take it off the table. It's always yes, And let's take it a step further. You might get some big, crazy, wild ideas, but the more ideas on the table, eventually you'll be able to take a nugget out of it and you'll be able to pull something to life. The other thing that I would like to add is really innovation isn't just about creating things from scratch. It can also be process improvements. So as you get out there and you're listening to your customers or you're listening to your peers and you're learning more and more about the challenges that others have, then you're able to start thinking of ways to actually fix the problem. So go out there and just listen.
Excellent. I think we've heard some really powerful themes here about diversity, meaning diversity not just of some of the standard things that we think of, but actually diversity of thought and diversity of surrounding. So when you bring the outside in, that sometimes requires you to take yourself outside, whether it's through articles or through looking at other industries or looking, as Jenny said, at other examples. And the element of courage when in all these stories, the courage to try something with discipline, but also the courage to make it safe for other people through saying yes and creating conditions that create brainstorming. Because some of the best ideas happen in environments where a lot of ideas happen. And in order to have a lot of ideas, you have to have that safety in the environment. So these are some powerful examples, and I think things here that our audience can easily adapt and try themselves. So I think our audience has been pretty vocal, and I hope that we're getting some questions from you that we'll take in a few minutes. One last point we want to make before we get to the questions. In terms of talent management, Latoya, what grassroots programs can actually come out of these stories and lessons to drive meaningful change? We've heard anecdotes, we've heard from everybody. How do you actually convert those into programs that drive meaningful change across the culture?
You see that in two ways that come to my mind from an Ericsson talent management perspective, and the first is employee engagement. So we have a annual employee survey where we allow employees to provide feedback on all of our programs, initiatives, and any ways that they can identify or see opportunities for us to innovate, change, improve on processes and programs. And the other place that I'd like to highlight what we do from a grassroots standpoint and really creating meaningful change across the culture is through our performance management. So it is totally self-directed. Employees create individual goals. They receive customized feedback from their managers and key stakeholders on their performance. And also, again, their career advancement is self-directed. So they determine and set their own course here at Ericsson versus pathways and roles being standardized and kind of pushed down to employees. We actually take a bottom-up approach and allow the employees to really set the course and the compass for what they want from a talent management perspective here at Ericsson. So again, they create customized goals and show how they can deliver benefit to the company versus the company sharing an overall goal and kind of bleeding down. And also, again, the careers are self-directed. So they can determine when they want to take a lateral assignment or what areas they'd like to gain some expertise in before pursuing promotions or other career advancement opportunities. So this is one place where you can kind of create your own grassroots innovation from a career standpoint for yourself.
Excellent. I think a theme that I'm hearing throughout is really one of personal accountability. We have a high-performance culture that has enough choice to permit discovery, but part of that means taking accountability for figuring out how your actions move the needle on the company or the organization's missions. And when you think about your career not as a ladder, but more of a jungle gym, the power is in your hands, the responsibility is in your hands, and the accountability lies with the individual. And so I think that is a very powerful thought for us about innovation culture. We so often think of it as a place that we want to walk into, like the example we gave at the beginning, but it's really about what you do when you walk in. So I think our audience is equally passionate on this topic, and I understand they've been pretty vocal on Twitter and on Google Chat with their thoughts and questions. So let's take about 10 minutes to field some questions from them and throw them at our panelists. So, first question, an interesting one. Considering innovation is about radical thinking without any boundaries, isn't the term innovation management a bit of an oxymoron? Because management sort of implies boundaries. Can you speak to that? Jenny, can you speak to that one?
Sure, absolutely. That was a funny one. Innovation management. Innovation management is not about setting boundaries, and it's not about micromanaging. It's actually the opposite. It's about going back to those environmental conditions and really fostering the environment where you allow your employees to share new ideas. Now, if you see someone in your team that's really shutting down others or prohibiting that type of environment, then it's your responsibility to do so. Or to give them some coaching to let them know that that's not the path that the team is taking. But it's really about fostering that environment. The other thing that I think innovation management really should do to help us out is you're out there to remove roadblocks. You know, some of those barriers. You're there to help your team actually start working on their innovative ideas. And it's also to help promote those ideas. So as you're sitting out there talking at the leadership team meetings or other events like that, help promote those ideas and spear that along as well.
Excellent. Okay. Another question that we're hearing are how can boards, company boards and groups of leaders manage the concern around innovation, balancing the fact that it needs to happen with the fact that there never seems to be enough time for it to happen. Ilaria, can you take that one? You spoke about creating time for innovation. How do boards manage their concern, company boards who are trying to steer the company between wanting an innovation culture and then always being hard-pressed to find the time for it?
Yeah, actually it's a very tough one. I think, like I was saying, I think priorities, for example, is a good thing to keep in mind. So if innovation at one point is important for your company, depending where you are in your company, right, and how much innovation you can already do through the normal funnels, for example, in our case will be Ericsson Research and so on, then for all the other innovation that is more grassroots, which is what we talk about today, then it would be important to be able to understand, like, first of all, funnel this innovation, understand how important it is, and then if it's important, prioritize towards the other things that you had already in the normal funnel of your product process. So I don't know if these answer the questions, but I guess that besides all the things that we have talked about today, I think the concern could be managed in this way, like understanding when is a good innovation, when you want to jump on it, and then what else can then slip out if time is the concern.
Yeah. Priorities and creating efficiencies and other things to create space and bandwidth.
Exactly, but I believe also that with the right innovation culture, for example, you were saying someone could be so passionate about it to find the time anyway, right? So that's also something important to keep in mind. Create an innovation culture helps to make your organization find the time no matter what.
I find that people make time for the things that they're passionate about because very often what they do is a labor of love, and so when you can connect people to their passions, the time sort of creates itself sometimes. Okay, we have a cool question here from Google+. I'm interested in what you said about help wanted ads within Ericsson for getting resources on ideas through non-traditional channels. Can you expand on that idea and let us know what that looks like? Are there ads with no resources, people just don't reply, or do you actually get response from this kind of a platform when everyone's so busy? Latoya, can you take that one?
Sure. So Help Wanted is a new initiative for us, and the way that I would tell you to think about it is it's actually a resourcing alternative. So instead of creating open requisitions and trying to identify and create new roles, it's an opportunity for you to get help that you need on those projects that your organization wants to move forward without having to, dedicate resources financially and human resources to this. So I would tell you that it's something that's gaining more momentum within Ericsson. The start of it, I think, because it was a new idea, managers had a lot of questions around, okay, how can I utilize someone who truly is owned by another organization or cost center, and what's the right amount of time, and how do I get them trained up, etc. And now I think it's starting to develop some momentum where managers are putting the things out there. They're creating ads for the help that they need, and employees are starting to kind of do some mapping and matching, and we're starting to see lots of additional residual benefits from it, where employees are proactively networking in organizations that they want to look at for future lateral opportunities as well. So it's kind of added some additional benefits for employees as well. The other thing that I would say about the platform is you have to really be strategic or encourage your managers to make sure that they are using the right identification and definition for the work that they are looking for employees to provide. In the beginning, I think some of our ads were a little bit too general, and employees didn't know that it was a match for the skills and capabilities and strengths that they possessed. So if you're going to use this type of mechanism, I would encourage you to make sure that you're clearly defining the effort hours that are expected and also the skills that are needed. But it's definitely given us some benefits internally, just an opportunity, again, to show employees where organizations have needs and to have employees who have an additional capability or capacity, or just as you said, Vidya, a passion for a certain area of the work to be highly engaged.
Excellent. I think this speaks to the fact that for many decades, people identified themselves within a company based on their physical address, based on the organization they belong to. But now in this age of social networking, we can identify ourselves as members of communities of interest, communities of interest, of passions that are shared and talents that are shared. And I think Help Wanted create sort of a giving culture within a company where you are expected to look for channels for your own interest and enthusiasm and what that fosters. I think it's a very powerful thing indeed. So let's talk about the flip side a little bit. A lot of people out there asking, what happens when innovation is stifled, when it's held back? How do you create programs in the environment? There was some mention of idea boxes and things like that. How does that help alleviate or make a difference when innovation is actually being smothered a little bit? Ilaria, can you talk about that? I think you mentioned it earlier.
Yes, so as I said, in Ericsson we have had different programs for innovation. So I think that that's something important. If you feel that in your organization innovation is stifled, then these programs where someone driving it and looking at what are the problems, why is it stifled, and so on, would help them to get it going again. And as I mentioned in the beginning, for example, we had some programs where we had an Innova box where we allowed everybody to post ideas, and that gave us a good way to understand, okay, is really innovation not there, ideas not there, or is just that they don't have a way to express them. So we saw a huge quantity of ideas coming in the Innova box, and then we understood, okay, the ideas are there, they have them. So what can we do next then to take them further? And then we have created other figures and other programs, for example, Innova coaches that would have helped them to take these ideas further one by one. And then we realized, okay, but then it's really a lot of ideas, so how can we make sure that we have the right focus and time to take it really to the product? So then we created the Innova Squad, and the program that Kat was part of, where we were really having this group of talented engineers coming from everywhere, focusing on a few specific ideas, but then really taking them to the product. So creating this type of programs, assigning them to someone that drives them, and starting really from the beginning, asking yourself questions and getting the answers that you need to understand if the innovation culture is there or not, could help them get away from that feeling of being stuck.
Some structure to get past that feeling.
Exactly.
A related question, maybe Kat, you can take this one. How can my company build a network of these innovation champions and coaches that were referenced? How do you actually build that network within a company?
Sure. So as Ilaria mentioned, within Ericsson, we have what are called innovation coaches. And so from the large quantities of ideas that come in through our Innova Idea Box, some are selected to be coached into further stages of development. And our coaches have training in the design thinking process of inspiration, ideation, and action, and testing. And they help our engineers who come up with these ideas to develop them to the next stage, to get them ready for a pilot, for instance. And so that's one way we can do it, is by offering this formal training to a network of coaches that can then spread their learnings to the wider organization.
There's a related question about measuring innovation, and Jenny, I'd like you to take that one. The question is, I'm an executive director at my company, and I want to measure the success of these innovation initiatives within my team. Probably not the traditional metrics, but how do you handle that? Any suggestions for the measurability?
Yeah. It really is a good question. Every company struggles with this one. There's a couple different ways that you can do it. To create the environment and to really get that fostered into your organization, you can go so far as asking people to just come up with and brainstorm. So how many new ideas can you bring to our team? And you get together on a reoccurring basis and you just brainstorm, and it's participating in that. So you can go so far as tracking the number of new ideas that people bring to you. You can also look at the results that your pilots or your new programs bring to the company. So for example, there's exploration days. It was created to solve a problem. We knew that we wanted to increase our numbers or our results around growth and development, and we wanted to be able to really help employees with that a little bit more. So we were able to go back into our dialogue results and see if the Exploration Days program truly did increase our growth and development numbers. And happy to say it did, but that's one way as well to be able to measure the success of your innovative programs, is did it solve the problem that you created it to solve?
And you mentioned dialogue. For the audience that may not know what that is, maybe you can say a few words about how we use that annual assessment and survey to really take stock of how we're doing in a number of dimensions, including innovation.
Absolutely. Our dialogue is a global annual engagement survey that we send out to all of our employees, and we take that feedback truly to heart. We look at several dimensions. I believe there's 12 dimensions overall. There's 52 questions across the entire survey, and it really helps find the voice of the people. It helps us understand more what's going really well and that we need to continue doing, or what's not going well and maybe we've got an opportunity there.
Thank you. One last question I think we'll take here. Are there particular kinds of skills, and I'll direct this one at Latoya, are there particular kinds of skills required to lead innovation? In other words, how can I train myself to become an innovator who leads innovation in my environment?
I think there's a couple of things you can do. So outside of the traditional reading books on innovation and managing teams and attending training, I always encourage managers here to incorporate icebreakers into their team meetings, where you bring in a rubber band and say, let's brainstorm how many different alternative uses we can come up with for a rubber band. And just see what happens in the brainstorming and the momentum that you create in your teams. I think the other thing, some of those non-traditional things, is look for that kid in your neighborhood that always asks why, and start to negotiate and talk with them through different toys and games to figure out and see how their mind works. I'd say challenge yourself. Look for ways, again, to bring the outside in. As you're watching television and as you're working across teams, there may be ideas that you're implementing and executing with human resources, with finance and accounting, with marketing, that you're not giving consideration to bringing into your own teams. So it's kind of turning things on their side and seeing if they have a use for your organization, just as the examples I've shared previously around kind of the have it your way approach to fast food or just-in-time supplies and manufacturing environments. Sometimes you just need to take that step back and ask yourself the question of how can I apply this in a different way to bring benefit to my organization or to my customer base. So I'd say take some of those non-traditional approaches and look for ways to innovate, improve, streamline, reduce time, work process time, etc. And open up and foster a work environment that allows for a dialogue. So if you're working in open office environments, I think what works for me as a part of the talent management team is now we're in an open office environment. So sometimes some of those wicked problems are things that you may be dealing with and you feel stuck. It's just a matter of turning around and screaming out to Jenny, hey Jenny, what would you do with this? So creating an environment where you can just talk and dialogue and work through ideas will help improve your innovation tremendously.
Cool. Speaking of non-traditional connections, we're going to try to squeeze in one really last quick question, and Ilaria, I hope you can help us with a quick answer. Can you give examples of science and art, another pairing that's sometimes unlikely but powerful, working together for tech innovation?
Yes. So to start with an example that maybe resign more with us because we are all consumers and Ericsson doesn't really create products for consumers, I'll start with an example from an Apple product, the iMac. As everybody knows, that was a great example where technology was combined with design to create a product that was not only well-functioning but also appealing. And we don't create products directly for consumers, but we have that in mind as well because there are engineers out there that have to use our products every single day. So why they wouldn't have to appreciate the way it works and so on. So we also have this approach where we bring in different skills, not only the technical ones, to make sure that the innovation is also end-to-end. And in general, one suggestion is always to, creating a team basically with different skills to have a team that, as someone says, is a kind of a T shape. So of course the main expertise of the team is still the technical expertise, but you extend your boundaries into, for example, art and this more human thinking design.
Cool. Everybody always focuses on the letter I in innovation, but I think you're making the point the letter T matters too. Definitely. It's been a fantastic dialogue, everybody. So as we near the end of our time together, I want to go out with some last words from each of our wonderful panelists. They started with a word, and maybe they want to end with it and give you some key takeaways and conclusions. So one per panelist, they'll hand off to each other. Ilaria, we'll start with you.
Yes, so I would say look how you can enable an innovation culture in your organization, starting from the project where you're working. How can you integrate innovation into your day-to-day work and having always innovation in the back of your mind for every problem that you have to solve, or maybe problems that are not there yet, but that you can find. And then as a person as well, try to see how you can enable yourself to be more innovative.
And your word was empower. It's really all about that. Yeah, cool. Okay, Kat?
Thanks, Vidya. I would leave off by saying that we should keep in mind the user that we're innovating for. And even a B2B company like Ericsson has a human end user for all of our customers, for all of our innovations, rather, whether they're within the company or it's our customer or our customer's customer. And it can be a challenge for individual contributors to come up with these extrinsic innovations, as we call them, but that kind of thinking can really be encouraged if we spread the right kinds of questions that need to be answered throughout the company. And so, again, it's really all about empathizing with our users.
Excellent. Cool. Okay, Jenny?
So my word was courage, and I think it really does take courage to be able to innovate and to speak up and to share your ideas with others, but what do you have to lose? Worst case scenario, you get told no, and best case scenario, you get to make a real change for other people. Stay open-minded and share your ideas. Latoya?
My word was agility, and if I can leave with a picture in your mind, I think about the wheel, and the first wheel made out of that big piece of rock. And now think about what you have in your mind with regard to the wheel. It has changed and morphed and adapted over time, and that is what I'd ask of each of you as you think about agility. Allow your ideas to morph and grow and meet the needs and evolve as you go on.
Thank you. So as we wrap up here, I want to thank our wonderful panelists for their time, their perspectives, their experiences, and thank also David Stankiewicz, Nita Patel from IEEE WIE, and Kelly Myers, Pam Waddington, and Sophie Skaggs from Ericsson. We're all together making today's virtual panel happen. As a quick reminder to you, this Google Hangout is part of a larger series of virtual events organized by IEEE, and a recorded version of this session will be immediately available, so spread the word and stay tuned. We leave you with this thought, and I hope you can see this topic means something to all of us very much. Go back to the opening example where you closed your eyes and imagined yourself in that ideal workplace. You were thinking of how you felt and what you saw and what you heard. But I hope after this you're thinking about what you're doing and what you're saying and where you're going and how you're behaving with other people to make that environment turn into the workplace of your dreams. It's about empowerment, empathy, courage, agility, taking diversity to a whole new level, diversity of thought, diversity of surroundings, bringing the outside in, and thinking about your journey as not just a vertical ascension, but really a lattice and an exploration of discovery. Today's professional environment absolutely may be complex. It is complex. But I think the reasons that people have for loving their companies, and in some cases not loving them, tend to be forever really, really simple. Innovation culture matters, and it matters like never before, and I hope you know it certainly matters to all of us here at Ericsson and at IEEE. We hope this session has generated some ideas, some examples, and some inspiration to help you bring that vision of your best and most innovative dream workplace to powerful life. Thank you for joining us. Goodbye.